next thing we want to talk about, seeing Jesus' pattern for ministry, I want to talk about Jesus' strategy for ministry. And we're going to move over to end of chapter 9 and chapter 10 of Matthew. Skip up a few of these verses before. We'll start with 9:35. And Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every infirmity. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray therefore the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." And he called to him his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal every disease and every infirmity. The names of the 12 apostles are these. And then there's the list of those guys we pick up in verse 5. These 12 Jesus sent out, charging them, "Go nowhere among the Gentiles, and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Preach as you go, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without pay, give without pay. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts, no bag for your journey, nor 2 tunics, no sandals, nor a staff, for the laborer deserves his food. And whatever town or village you enter, find out who is worthy in it, and stay with him until you depart. As you enter the house, salute it. And if the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it's not worthy, let your peace return to you. And if anyone will not receive you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet as you leave that town. Truly I say to you, it shall be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town." Starting back again at 9:35, Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, healing every disease and every infirmity among the people. Does that sound familiar? Have we heard this before? Just looked at back in chapter 4:23, almost identical verse here. What we're finding is, again, we're getting a reference at this stage to Jesus' twofold ministry plan. And the first part of it is a public ministry that we first saw back in chapter 4, now seen here in chapter 9, where he's involved in preaching, teaching, and either healing or caring for the needs of people. But while we're getting this reference again to his public ministry to a fairly sizable group of people, that's immediately followed in chapter 10 with this discipleship ministry where he is training disciples. In this case, the training is sending them out to do ministry themselves after they have been watching him do ministry. do we find here then in these passages of Scripture about Jesus' pattern for ministry? We have already been seeing in chapters 5, 6, and 7 was the communication of God's truth. Communication of God's truth. What Jesus after, the content of ministry here is spiritual understanding. He's concerned his disciples comprehend things, God's truth. And his medium for doing this is teaching. He just sits them down and starts talking. And that's one of the ways he works, and it's one of the ways we're going to have to work as disciples. Not everybody has a gift for teaching, but everybody has some capacity to be able to teach other people. And the reason we know everybody has some capacity for teaching is because everybody has the capacity for being a parent. Don't raise your hands. How many of you had a chance to teach your children?
Good and bad.
Some of us are still doing it, even though they're grown. All that to say is, your chief gift may not be, but you've got some opportunities. Don't miss this. It's part of what Jesus is after here. But the second thing that happens after chapters 5, 6, and 7, we come to Matthew 8 and 9, which are a series of stories about Jesus giving himself to ministry. First of all, their activities of ministry. Meeting the needs of people in general. And secondly, modeling for disciples how to do ministry. Giving himself to ministry, and he's modeling how you do ministry for the 12. The medium here is personal encounter with people. As he runs across them, comes in contact with them. And the same thing when he is associating with his disciples. Medium is that personal encounter or association with the 12 in a more intimate, permanent kind of basis. Well, they're always in the background. He heals a paralytic, somebody's forgiven, people have questions about fasting. Or a ruler came, said, my daughter's just died. He goes, raises somebody from the dead. It's a remarkable series of stories of ministry, and all that time he's connecting himself with people. He's also training disciples in that process. By the time we get to chapter 10, or a chapter into chapter 9, Jesus has been doing significant ministry to people, But now we find Jesus' major problem with ministry. Say, my goodness, I didn't know Jesus had any problems. But he does. And you thought you were the only one who had problems in ministry with other people. Jesus looks around, he discovers there's too much work to do. There are too many needs to be met. The harvest is plenty. They're like sheep and need some care. Too much work, too many needs, and the other half of the problem is there are too few helpers or laborers. Sheep are helpless like a sheep without shepherd. Harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. There are not enough people doing the work. Not enough folks meeting the needs. Not enough folks in the vineyard. Not enough helpers, not enough laborers. It's not sufficient. How many, you don't have to raise your hand here, but how many of you have found there's too much work to be done in spiritual ministry? I suspect all of us have been in that category. But this is not an uncommon problem. Jesus knew that. Trying to say, all right, there's too much to do, what do you do?